Okay, so we had the FA Cup final. We have big news in the transfer side of things with Haaland going to City, and we also have um, Spurs and Arsenal vying for that fourth spot, trying to lock themselves in for a Champions League position themselves. Play that music, son. Tunes. So let's start with the big tuna, Haaland. The big tuna, Haaland. He shows up. He's getting signed to Manchester City. We got the Comunicado Oficial from City's fucking website the other day. So that's all sorted. Then he's done his medical. There's no
Mm-hmm.
hurdles. There's nothing else to cross. There's no sort of tricks up anyone's sleeves. He's gonna be a City player next season. So I guess like my question to you is, what's your first impression,
Huge,
the initial
huge
reaction?
signing, huge signing. Everyone was saying, "Oh, he needs strikers. Why doesn't Pep sign a striker?" And they were talking about signing Kane. To be fair, they've signed in arguably a better player for half
Mm.
the price in Haaland with a bigger with, and I say better only
Can
because
you can you break down the costs real quick?
I believe it's there was a 60 million pound or 60 million euro
Yeah.
um what do you call this breakout fee,
Okay.
release clause, that's the word I was looking for, release
Mm.
clause. And they activated it, they negotiated in terms of the fees and contributions to go to each party. I believe from memory Salzburg will get 20 or so million from the deal. So in reality, Dortmund kind of get shortchanged here
Okay.
because they lose their talisman for
Yeah.
60 million, which isn't
Yeah.
probably market value. But
Yeah, but
then,
that's what they put on
well,
the
look,
contract.
they acquiesced to the whim. They put it in there. If they didn't want it in there, they could have renegotiated or
Yeah.
done something different. But it went out without a hitch, all
Mm.
things considered.
Mm.
But yeah, nah, really good signing. The potential is still there.
Yeah.
My only concern is his injuries. He seems to play through a lot, which could probably harm his durability.
Yeah, you mentioned that, huh? Yeah, he does do that. But like
Mm.
my question to you is that how much control does he really have of that if the staff, like the medical staff, say that he can't play and they
Yeah,
really push
it's
it? And like when
yeah.
you in a team like City with the way Pep is and he's so much of a control freak, like I'm curious how much control does he have to do that? I feel like it has to be a combination of both the player having that will, but
100%.
also the staff and the coaching around him being sort of enablers of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas I
yeah,
feel like at City, I don't think that's going to be much of a.
yeah.
Does
I
City
think
have a history of letting players play through injuries?
no, not really. I think every club probably does it. They go, look, we can hit you some cortisone shots so you don't feel anything, and then we'll just keep jabbing you till you can have the time off for the surgery, or you want to take time off, whatever. So it's not a Dortmund thing. It's probably a professional football thing in general.
Yeah.
Whether it be the highest of the highest or someone in the championship or second division, like you can just. I'm sure there's people out there taking cortisone shots right now just to keep playing. Um, I think the only question mark I have pretty much is just a measure of his durability. Even when he's not playing with injuries, he does miss a decent chunk of time,
Hmm.
anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So that's the only question mark I have in terms of a fit. I think he'll be great. He's a poacher. He can hold up, run in behind. It's a matter of how he's going to fit in terms of personalities with Pep as well. That's always a big one. He doesn't seem
Yeah,
like a
that's going
big
to be interesting to see.
yeah, he doesn't seem like a big diva, but he's a straight shooter, pretty
I think
unemotional
it.
guy.
You know where it could be. They could become a crux, right? I feel like he's the kind of guy where he's completely results and outcome focused, right?
Mm.
Where if their results are, they're winning games, I don't think he's going to clash that much with Pep. But let's say, and we're fast forwarding a lot here, but let's say they bomb out of the Champions League again, right? I feel like Haaland being there is now another pressure on Pep, not only because of the
Oh, for sure.
expectation that everyone puts on him because now he's got that sort of final piece of the puzzle, but also because I feel like Haaland's the kind of person who is gonna start to be like it's Champions League or bust every year for us. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Whereas at the moment, there's not really that sort of star player out there where it feels as though his potential is being unmaximized purely because they're not winning the Champions League. Like
mm,
everyone feels as though they're being elevated by Pep and Man City, right? Whereas I feel like Haaland might be the first player in a while where if they don't win the Champions League, it'll sort of be like Mbappe at PSG. You know what
mm,
I mean? But people
mm,
will look at it and be like, hey, you've got this massive talent here. You're not executing on the game plan here. So I feel like he brings so much other than just what he's going to provide in terms of in a football sense. Like he brings added expectations for the club. He brings a new dynamic for what Pep has to deal with in the locker room in terms of a personality.
mm,
Now Pep has to fit him in. You know what I mean? Like he can't. There's now a player, whereas him and Kevin De Bruyne, he has to get them in somehow. You know what
mm,
I mean?
mm,
He hasn't had that sort of problem for a while, right? When's the last time Pep had a team where there was a guy that he had to sort of get him in no matter what, where it wasn't about whatever Pep's best idea is? It's okay, it's Pep's best idea with this guy, right?
mm,
But the last time was probably what? Messi, maybe Lewandowski at Bayern Munich, you know? There
yeah.
hasn't been, since then, it's just been Pep teams,
Mm,
where the starting 11 he can pick and chop and change and there's no questions asked.
mm,
Even
mm,
with £100 million, sorry, Jack Grealish, he still wasn't handcuffed to someone having to start them. But now with Haaland, like if he doesn't start him for 3 or 4 games, it's gonna be like, whoa, what the fuck? What are you doing? When's the
yeah.
last time that's happened?
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know. It just makes sense all around. I think
Yeah.
I think you're right in saying that there is an added expectation with the Champions League and adding Haaland to it
Hmm.
because that's I guess what people deem the final piece to Pep's puzzle
Yeah.
and what they needed to kind of elevate. Um, Look, it's another dimension added to the City game and to Pep's Swiss Army knife.
Hmm.
Um, I'm curious now with him there. I'm anticipating that there's going to be some offloading done. Where does this leave Gabby Jesus, Sterling, who's been in and out of transfer rumors himself?
Who's
Just a
actually had a good season this year. Like he's done well.
yeah, no, it's not.
I,
Yeah,
th- I think he's got like what 13 goals or something like that. Like
yeah,
that's
it's
pretty
just
solid return.
I think the numeric I think the thing with Sterling is numerically like he can have a really good season, but I think the fact that Pep has moved him away from being the number one option on the left hand
Yeah,
side,
much better.
and it kind of says a lot more. Like yeah, okay, he's provided output, and it's up to Sterling,
Hmm.
if he's happy to let Foden come in and if Gabby Jesus moves and we've already seen Ferran leave as well and maybe even
I
Mahrez or
just, I
whoever
just, I
else.
just, I just think that like with the way he's playing, uh, the kind of attacking option he provides, seems to me like it'll blend more with Haaland
Mm,
than what Grealish has provided so far this season. Like
mm,
Grealish really slows tempo down when he gets the ball, right?
mm,
And I know that he's normally known for creating chances in the box, but at City at least so far, I haven't really seen that. What I've seen more from him is him sort of slowing the ball down and connecting with KDB, sort of in that little pocket on the left hand side behind him, or whoever the sort of trailing centre mid is. I feel like that's sort of the opposite of what you'd want to do with Haaland, whereas you want a winger that would ping himself into the corner and drag the centre backs and the full backs out with him really wide to give Haaland like the chance to operate in the middle. So I
mm,
feel like there's a lot of sort of pieces have to be moved around, at least in my sort of calculations. Like Sterling makes more sense than Grealish does, but at the same time, you kind of forced to use Grealish, obviously, because he cost 100 million.
mm.
So then who do you ask to leave? Sterling or what's his name? Or Gabby Jesus or
Yeah, well,
Mahrez?
yeah,
Or there's sort of like there's a lot of questions to answer. Do they
I
bring
think
someone else?
I think
Maybe
so.
they get rid of two or three of them and bring someone else in.
Well, that's the thing. I think Gabby Jesus is most likely the first one out. I
Hmm.
just don't see him
It's a
sticking around.
logical one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think more so for him. I just don't think he, especially after this season, I don't think he sees him there long term. I like with Haaland coming in and Farhan leaving and no clear number nine, and he's still not getting a look in, and it took until I guess the end of the season, or not end of the season, but he started well on the right hand side and then kind of went cold, and then he brought him back into the fold, and he's done well. It's just a matter of what he wants to do. I think Gabby's gone. Sterling is more 50-50.
Hmm.
To be fair, I don't put Grealish in the picture of the team for now, as someone to kind of um, keep an eye on because he's just so far away from the starting 11 and being a piece of that puzzle that, like, yeah, to be fair, I think it's either fit in or fuck off for him next season.
Hmm.
I think the fact that he does slow down the play really frustrates everyone else because you can see that City like to keep the ball moving. Every time he gets the ball, it stops, goes
Yep.
backwards, slithers around. Like, it's not to
Yep.
say that he's been an abject failure, but he's
The
just
that's
it
the
takes
thing, right?
it just takes time. Foden's on the left hand side 100% of the time, well, 90% of the time, and
Yep.
he's Pep's go to player on that left hand side, and he's shown that he does the things that complement Haaland well, which is hang out wide, cut in, or feed the strikers and
It's going to
goals.
be more difficult for Jack as well because how often did we see that Jack used to get minutes when Foden used to get minutes at centre forward? You
Mm,
know,
mm,
Foden's not going to get any minutes at centre forward really now
mm.
with Haaland
Yeah,
there.
he's gonna have some
So
time reduced there for sure.
exactly. So that means he's going to spend more time at left wing, which means there's less time for Jack Grealish there.
The only thing I can think of is De Bruyne will probably have minutes reduced at center forward as well, which he's played there a few times. So
Uh,
maybe Grealish becomes the default substitution for Kevin De Bruyne in the middle. I don't know. I'm just spitballing at this point, just going off the point where you mentioned Foden gets reduced minutes at the false nine.
hmm.
Maybe we see that. I think that would probably work better than him out wide for what City like to play and what Pep wants from his wingers.
Yeah.
But look, I think Haaland's a good point to start with in terms of refreshing the squad because I think the squad is it's a really good squad. It'll win you a title, and it's very competent. But
Yeah.
in reality, when you look at it versus Liverpool, I think there's glaring deficiencies in certain positions, especially at maybe centre back or left back. Like, yeah, okay, or even right back. Like, Cancelo is good, but
Hmm.
he was a stopgap that worked out, and it works because of Pep's inverted fullback philosophy.
Yeah.
Kyle Walker at right back is good, but then how many times have we seen him?
He has moments. Yeah.
Yeah, he has moments. He's very one dimensional in the fact that he just runs up. His footballing IQ is poor. And
Hmm.
then Ruben Diaz is the default center back. And then Laporte, I trust the least, probably. Nathan Ake hasn't really had a run in at center back properly. Stones is good in moments, but again, as we saw in the final last year in the Champions League, he has his moments and he's not confidence inspiring. So then, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then in the midfield, I think there's a lot of questions. Like, is Rodri the guy that's like? It's obviously it's been his best season so far in a City shirt this year, but is he the guy to keep going? Like, he is Fernandinho's replacement, but he doesn't. He hasn't taken up like the full. He hasn't really. What? How do I say it? He hasn't all encompassed all of Fernandinho's
Yeah.
traits and replaced them directly. Maybe he's added something different. Um,
Yeah.
Gundogan's hot and cold. Kevin De Bruyne, he's getting older, and it seems like he's being asked to do something different. He's not that talisman like he was before. He's doing things different, and obviously he's picked up a few injuries
Yeah.
along the way. Um, so there's just I think that the squad is a little thin in
Hmm.
some places, and they haven't quite got the answer to some of the other positions in the starting 11. I don't think they'll sign another left back at this stage because I think Cancelo's got it on lock because he works the best there. for now,
Yeah.
and I don't see another left back that could do what Pep wants
I
from his
think
back
yeah. I just
position.
don't. I don't think they're gonna see it as an area to invest in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
There's no
and
immediate replacements. That's the
it's
problem.
also
There's not
the
one
same
guy.
thing with there's also the same thing with, like, the defensive mid position. I
Mm,
think that they're not willing to, like, look at Rodri's performances and say, oh, we could get something better. We could get someone closer to what we want them to do. Like, they're gonna roll with that, mostly
mm,
because they've just forked out a decent chunk for Haaland, right? And the other issue is that they've got other more glaring sort of, like, they have to fork out, I think, a decent chunk of money on another centre back. I
mm.
think we've gotten to the point now where, yes, Ruben Diaz is good, obviously, right? But if anything, he's just made it more obvious that the other centre back isn't quality. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's Laporte, whether it's Stones, whether it's Ake, whoever it is that they partner with him, you're kind of like, damn, he's carrying a lot of the time,
Mm,
you know.
mm.
And no
100%.
no top level top five team in any league wants it to be that one centre back is carrying the other. You want it to be a pair of, high quality, balanced guys that can count on each other. Because you don't want it. That's like one area where it should be a good duo, a good partnership there. And I feel like Laporte's been poor. Stones has been. I don't want to be harsh on him. I just feel like he hasn't been had a good year. And then Aka is just like, even when he has a good game, he's a little undersized.
Mm,
Sometimes his distribution is a little too flary. He
mm,
over not over commits, I want to say, but, like, he tries to do just something a little bit out of his skill range, right? Where when you're playing, and I think it's because of the games he plays, because he plays against your Norwiches and your Brentfords, and he plays the filler games. So I feel like because there's less pressure in those games, he plays a little, you know, outside of his skill set because there's not as much at risk. They
mm,
tend to win those quite comfortably. Whereas if you were to try to pick him up and plop him in a big game, like, he can't be that guy. So I
mm.
feel like you'll never really feel the confidence with him because of the kind of performances we see him give. So I feel like they're gonna have to splash cash to get another centre back if they want to make another good Champions League run. If they're really going to commit to Haaland, because I think they're going to throw a lot of cash this year at trying to go for the Champions League. Because I feel like if they don't win the Champions League this year, there's a good chance Pep starts to look elsewhere. Because just fucking this morning, actually, I was watching a interview that PK did where he's talking about the reason that Pep left Barcelona. One of the biggest reasons why he left Barcelona was because he got sort of sick and tired with the media circus around what he was dealing with Mourinho and Real Madrid and all
Mm,
this sort of stuff.
mm.
He imagine the scrutiny he's going to be under if they fail to win the Champions League with Haaland. It's going to be very hard to sort of say that
Keep the
sort of
noise
level of
down.
scrutiny. Yeah, it's that sort of level of scrutiny, I would say, is probably comparable to what he was facing at Barca in those Mourinho years towards the end.
Mm. And
So
also, yeah, it's also like, has he hit his head on the ceiling? Is that as far as he can go with City?
yeah, yeah.
Close but no cigar. Like, it feels like it's just not meant to be at this point. And granted, he's been there for, I think, a longer time than Barca and
Oh yeah,
Bayern.
by far,
So he's had
by
plenty
far.
of time. He's had plenty of investment and backing.
Uh-huh.
It's I don't know. I think it'd be I don't know. I think next year will be similar. I think it's a similar thing because I think Pep can only do so much and take so much before he cracks himself. Um, Unless he's changed and he's fully committed to City, and he's like, look, I'm not leaving until
Or
we've got the
the
trophy in cabinet.
or maybe something, because the thing is that when he left Barca, um, like, I can see the board of directors, and, like, I can see the Barcelona club behind the scenes sort of putting pressure on Pep as well.
Mm,
So I could see them adding to the pressure he was experiencing from the media, from the rivalry with Mourinho, all that sort of stuff. Whereas there may be a chance, or a good likelihood, I should say, that at City, even if the media turns on him and even if the scrutiny is very large and all that sort of stuff, the external voices are awful, just as awful as they were at Barca. I feel like internally there's a chance that City will still be very cuddling for him and be like, look, we still want you to stay around. Like, that might be the difference.
yeah.
Whereas at Barcelona, results eventually start to rear their head. We can't.
Mm,
Doesn't matter if you're Guardiola, whoever it is. You go on a losing streak or you fail to win titles that we think you should win. You're going to be under the magnifying glass.
mm,
Whereas maybe at City, they're willing to sort of look the other way to continue what they've got going. I don't
yeah,
know. It's just different business approaches. The City group is very different to how Barca run a club.
yeah. And it's also, yeah, I think the fact that he doesn't have someone like Mourinho antagonizing
Yeah.
him also, it's like he has banter with Klopp and Tuchel and
Yeah, but it's the exact sort of rivalry that I think he likes to have, where
yeah,
it's
I
like
think it's
it's
yeah,
very
whereas
intense and all that, but it's very respectful.
yeah, whereas with Mourinho, and I think it's different when you're in your home country versus like in England, where you kind of come in as a foreigner, going, "Oh, your media love Liverpool," everyone wants to
Yeah.
follow Liverpool, stuff like that. So I don't know, or maybe he's just
Yeah.
grown from that period and he's just like, what, I just got to bear the brunt of it, take the
Mm.
pressure on, and keep chugging. Heavy is the crown. So yeah, maybe just carry on with it. I don't know. I just feel like there's a sense of we're not running the course yet, but there's a sense of inevitability where this is gonna come to an like Pep and City. We can see it's very far in the very far in the distance and end somewhere. Before it was like, well, we don't know until it just
Yeah.
keeps rolling. We didn't have this expectation, and now with I think it's probably because of the recency bias of of the most recent failure. Um, it kind of comes up more. But I feel like how many more times is it? We've had the Leon game, last
Yeah.
year's
No, you
final,
make a
this
good point.
game.
And like, okay, so think about how people feel after this last game, this last
Mm,
loss, right, in the Champions League. Imagine we go through all that again with Haaland.
mm,
you know like it's even going to be more so of it's going to be seen as a even larger of a failure, so
mm.
even more you're going to see those feelings of maybe we should move on to something else.
Have we
If
run our
people
course?
Yeah, if people were thinking that now with this team, then imagine what they're going to be thinking with the next sort of gen that we're getting with Haaland.
Mm,
So I can totally see it. I can see, they failed to win the Champions League. I can see Haaland, maybe his personality is very much like I want to win now. This is a failure. We should look to sort of greener pastures. Maybe he's butting heads with Guardiola and sees himself winning with a different sort of coach.
mm,
And suddenly the power structure's changed. Before
mm,
Guardiola was, nice clear hierarchy between himself and the players. And maybe Haaland comes in and shakes that up, and suddenly there's not just greater expectations because Haaland's there, but there's also another voice in the room. Who
mm.
knows?
Yeah,
Maybe
and it
maybe we're
could be,
completely wrong. Maybe they
yeah.
gel, and it's just another reason as to why Guardiola stays. He goes, "Oh, hold on, I know we failed in the Champions League, but I've got something here with this Haaland kid." So
Mm.
fuck, I like
You don't,
you don't
yeah,
know,
we don't know.
you
This is
don't
all
know.
hypothesizing and clutching at, straw man theories. But
Yeah,
again, like I always think of it as like Mourinho's, rise at the time at the top. At Chelsea, at United, at Real Madrid. Like this guy was the cream of the crop. If he's
yeah,
available, everyone's turning every stone to get this man on board. Nowadays, it's more like, probably some like the game eventually catches up. If there's anything
yeah,
that you can learn in sport or about sport, is the game will eventually catch up. Your time will come.
yeah,
And yeah, it feels like because we've had Pep at the top for so long. We've had Pep as the on the pedestal. His teams have been so far,
yeah. Clear.
far and away in terms of the game and how it's been played and how they get their results. Eventually, like it gets found out. Like there's no denying that
Sometimes
inevitability.
sometimes it's not even like a finding out. Sometimes it's just like the game evolves and your advantages that you had for being first to the party are gone.
Yeah, yeah,
Like when you go
exactly.
watch
Yeah.
those Barcelona 2008 games, right?
Mm,
They're doing shit that like literally no one else was doing at the same time.
mm,
At least at that large of a
yeah,
game, right?
yeah.
Like at that level.
Mm,
So if they're doing something that literally none of the other teams, you play 38, 40 something games a season, right? And 2 to 3 of them are different to the rest of them. And not only are they different, but it's being performed by the best players in the world at the time. like of course that's going to be difficult to catch up to, right?
mm,
It took years, and then and then the style moved to other clubs where
mm,
maybe the players were not as such as the previous ones, but still great players nonetheless. And then he
mm,
moved to another club where he was given resources to find those players and build to that
mm,
sort of stature
mm,
again. And so, as that sort of happened, the game around him has evolved and taken on those things, and there's been more sort of
mm.
analysis and not copying, but inspiration taken from
Exactly.
coaches
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Bielsa, like Guardiola,
Mm,
and then the resurgence of people like Klopp, right? Like Thomas Tuchel, people that are sort of pushing the envelope. And then you've got even really super young coaches like Julian Nagelsmann, who are pushing the envelope even further again with different tactics. So
yeah. Exactly.
it,
Yeah. The
it's yeah,
students
it's
become masters.
yeah, exactly. It's also like it's an evolution of the game, but it's also not a devolution of the teams he's had, but it's also an escalation of the challenge that he's
Mm,
had to face. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like at the beginning, he has all the advantage of the tactics being new and different and sort of unsettling, unorthodox, and also the luxury of three or four of the best 10 players of the last 20, 30 years, right?
mm,
Like there was a season where first, second, and third were Barcelona players in the Ballon
mm,
d'Or voting. Like
mm,
that he had that while also having an advantage over everyone tactically, you know? So now he's given up the tactical advantage, and through his movement of clubs, he's given up the player advantage as well.
mm,
So yeah, it's a bit of people are discovering how to beat Pep, but also people around them are now getting the tools that you need to sort of compete with this sort of new tactic, this new way of thinking, this new philosophy. That's why we
mm,
get pressing football, right? That's pressing football is the best way to deal with the high possession football that was created from Guardiola. It's just
mm,
the natural
mm,
reaction to it.
mm. Or just purely just sit back all the way back, frustrate
Yeah,
them, and
yeah,
execute on the counter, and that's like
yeah. But
it,
normally we only see that done by teams that don't tend to perform well
yeah, 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 like super
generally.
minnows
You
or
know?
someone that knows Pep by the number and goes, you know what,
Yeah,
I dare you
yeah.
to try break me down. I
They're
really
not
dare
gonna. They're
you.
not gonna be. They're rarely gonna be a team that's winning their comp,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
that's
100%. They're not.
it,
Yeah,
like you look at the teams that do that pressing style. It's your Liverpools, right? It's your Chelseas that really take the fight to them, right?
yeah.
They're the ones that are able to compete and actually
They match
perform
fire
well.
for fire.
Exactly, they're the ones that are beating teams week in week out.
Mm, mm,
Not to say that the sitting back style doesn't trouble Pep's teams. It's always been an Achilles heel for him.
mm,
All right, so let's go into the FA Cup. Got to cover it a little bit, mostly because there was a lot of intrigue around some of the injury substitutions that were made for Liverpool, given their games that they got coming up. But
mm,
essentially, the game finished 0-0. Quite a few chances for Liverpool. Um, Not a whole lot for Chelsea side of things. Liverpool hit the post a few times. I don't think Allison had to make any too
mm,
sketchy of a save, but
mm,
still, they go into penalty shootouts. Both keepers essentially cold, so to speak.
mm.
Uh, which is always something you follow going into the pens if any of the keepers perform well throughout. Um, no one really had a bad pen, to be honest with you. All pretty
Yeah.
solid pens. Um, Eventually, what's his name? Was it who missed one from Liverpool? Mane,
Mane.
right?
He got
Mane,
saved
yeah.
by Mendy.
My Mendy, yeah. Funnily enough, by his countrymen.
Yeah.
Um, and then the unlikely, was it Simakis?
Tsimikas, yes.
Simakas, yeah, that
Nailed
fucking
the winner.
scored nailed the winner. But look, what I was saying before about the interesting stuff is that we saw Mohamed Salah go off with an injury, and Van Dijk, like 20 minutes later, go off with another injury. Liverpool got the Champions League final coming up. They've got must-win games coming up in the Premier League. I've had a look at um, what the rumors are about how the reactions are to the injury. They're not big injuries, so to speak, but any sort of injury at a point in the season where you've barely got any rest period, like you gotta think that might sort of affect them somehow. Um, what do you reckon? Do you think it's going to impact their chances of going for this four title
The
run?
quaddy. I don't know. it's a balancing act. It's like, well, are you gonna fight City to the last day for the title and hope you get that as well,
Mm,
and risk losing the likes of Salah or Van Dijk or anyone else, even Fabinho, who they just announced that he should be back for the final, for the
yeah,
Champions League final. So that's good news for them. But do you run the risk to try spread yourself thin for all four finals and then miss someone for the most important one, which I think is the Champions League, because the league, you
yeah,
know, not you wouldn't they won't lose respect if they finish second, because it was a valiant effort to close down such an enormous gap.
yeah,
They drew with Tottenham, which was kind of took the sales out a little bit. So maybe they were already thinking like, look, we had to win that game. City looked pretty dominant with the rest of their schedule coming up. They've got no Champions League. I'd rather win the Champions League. It's not the best way to think of it, and I'm sure they want to win everything they can.
yeah.
I think it's like one of those decisions you have to make. It's like, well, what would I rather win, or who would I rather have,
I
or
think, yeah,
just kind of go, you know what, Luis Diaz, what's his name, Jota, or something like that. Step up, make it happen.
yeah.
Like, I don't want to risk Salah. I don't want to risk such and such. Make it happen. I need you guys to, step up to the plate and help us carry us to the four finals.
So look, man, all I reckon, Salah's gonna want to play that Champions League final no
Oh,
matter what,
100%,
based
100%.
on his
He'll skip the
comments the other
rest of the
day.
season just to play that final again.
Yeah. So I think if it becomes a question of maybe a game has to be missed, you know which game he's picking. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that. There's also the fact that I think it's gonna impact not so much like the fact that like they're gonna lose the title based on this injury, but it's gonna be looked at something that potentially maybe push them one direction or the other. City aren't dealing with, as far as I know, any particular injuries to close out the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just sort of sad that of all players for Liverpool to potentially lose for a couple games at the end of the season, it's Salah and Van Dijk, two of the
Mm-hmm.
most key players. So you just know that if they have a banana skin in these next Premier League games, and either one of them doesn't feature, that's going to be the first thing that they point at. So but this always sort of happens, right? Whenever there's these big sort of contests towards the end of the season, they're scrappier. There's this higher likelihood of injury, and unfortunately, poor Salah gets it again. Just when I saw that when I first saw it that he was injured, I was like, oh great, just before the Champions League final. Last time he plays Real Madrid, he gets injured in the first couple of minutes. Now he's injured here. How
Yeah, he
terrible!
got
But
subbed
like
off in the 33rd minute against Real Madrid in the finals, and
exactly,
this one was the 31st, which is just a bit of, I guess, what do you call it, mysticism around numbers
yeah.
again.
But
Yeah, no,
hopefully
it'd be a
he'll be
shame
back.
if
He'll
you
be all
missed
right.
it. Yeah, I think it
Nah,
was.
he'll be back. Yeah,
I think they said it was just a sore groin. Could be them just downplaying it, but it didn't seem. From what they said, it doesn't seem like a serious injury. I think it's more of a precautionary thing, which could be
yeah,
them leaning into having him for bigger matches and just a precautionary thing. So, yeah, who knows? Only time will tell. And yeah, maybe a case of it is what it is, man. If he's out, he's out. You just have to rely on others to make up the
yeah.
deficiency for him.
I think if Salah was out, and you could rest him from the prem games, um, and you cover him with rotations of Jota and Luis Diaz, that's fine.
Mm,
Whereas if you have to do the same sort of thing with Van Dijk, then you start getting a little sweaty. Then you start getting a
mm,
little maybe we
mm,
cop a 1-0 because with Van Dijk in there, you're pretty certain you're going to walk out with a clean sheet, and then it's just about
mm,
can you score a goal, against whatever
mm.
team's going to lock up on you.
Yeah, he's
But
probably worth that 0.25 of an XG
yeah,
in goals conceded
easily,
just alone
easily.
there.
So yeah, there's that. It's just made a couple. There's now decisions to be made for Liverpool, which is
Mm.
something that I'm sure that they'd rather not have had to do. They would have liked to come out of this game, knowing that they've got their full squad for the next couple key fixtures. Do you have anything else you wanted to cover?
Um, just want to look at the other side for Chelsea for 2 seconds. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
and,
Spurs and Arsenal as well. We have to talk about them.
yeah, and another issue with Romelu Lukaku, words being put on his mouth and him having to clarify days out from the final. Not a good look. But I mean, Chelsea have been their end to the season has been nothing short of and a spectacular car crash. Granted that they've dealt with so much with with the ownership of the club changing hands. Yeah, Lukaku, big Lukaku. Um,
Yeah.
even
Who
Tuchel. I
would
was
have
reading.
thought?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, go ahead. No, no, go ahead. Finish this,
I
Tuchel
was
first.
just going to say, and then I read somewhere that in amongst everything, obviously the injuries, the players running out of form, Abramovich, Tuchel's divorcing his wife after 12 years of marriage, which is another crazy banana skin to throw
Wow,
in amongst all the cats and pigeons. So yeah, it's
that's
just
crazy.
it feels like they're just like non every week feels like a stumble. They find a new set of stairs to stumble down. Like it's just like you think it's like
Yeah.
it's just we've got Reece James back. Alonso looks okay to cover, and then all of a sudden just another set of stairs. It's just yeah, I feel like they
The
just
thing,
run
like,
ragged at this point.
I just think it's crazy to think like when they won the Champions League, it was like, okay, we performed amicably in the league. Our star signing striker, wasn't what we thought in terms of a goal scorer, but we still won the Champions League. Kai Havertz is, he really shows up in big games. He might be something special, right? Tommy Tuchel's the man. Like he's led us to a Champions League final and a win. Like that's huge.
Mm,
Surely this is the start of something special, right? We've got good young players, we've got a good coach, all that sort of stuff. And then you go, what's right after that? Oh, we signed Lukaku. Oh, wow, happy days. Like it's everything is like it feels as though it's the start of like a nice run
mm.
up. It's trending. Everything's trending
It's
upwards.
the
There's
piece. It was the final piece. The goal scorer they
yeah,
needed at the
the
end
goal
of it. So
scorer they need.
Jorginho is not the top scorer with penalties.
And if you just look at it, you go, well, if you're to like chart something and you were charting a football team and you go, well, this coach that's been there for within 8 months, he's won them the Champions League.
Mm,
He's the player that he relied on to sort of clutch them through to the final and win them the game is a very young player in Kai Havertz, right? He's got lots of pieces across the back line that he can use.
mm,
He's got a midfielder like Kante. He's got all these sorts of tools or whatever. If you're to chart that, you're gonna go, they're gonna trend up. Like, and
mm,
then you add Lukaku, like, guaranteed.
mm,
No one expected Lukaku to have that terrible interview where he just shat on the club and said, "I want to go back
mm.
to Inter."
I
His
miss my ex,
performance,
basically.
yeah, exactly. His performances thereafter, the
Mm,
Ukraine war, like
mm.
you don't expect
They
all these
lose
things.
Chilwell. They lose their starting left wing back for a whole
Yeah,
season.
yep,
Reece James is in and out. Probably playing injured as well.
yeah, yeah,
Being rushed
yeah.
back due to a lack of depth. Players losing form.
Mm,
Aspi losing. Losing the fight against Father Time.
yeah,
Werner, scoring 4 and 4, then going cold. Havertz as well.
gold.
Mason Mount. Like it's just, I think it's they literally just got hit by a multitude of different things at
Hmm.
once throughout the season, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's hard to,
They
they've
made
had
a deal with the devil for that Champions League. They made a
exactly
deal
they
with the
did the
devil.
deal with
No
the
one
devil.
expected it. Everyone thought that was cash money for City. That
Mm,
Chelsea just made a good run. There was no real reason for them to win that game, and they came up trumps. No one expected that.
mm,
But look, they're paying for it.
yeah,
Like they're really paying for it now. We thought it was going to be the start of a good reign for Chelsea. I honestly thought it was like, fuck, that's it. Top three is locked in for the next 5, 6
yeah.
years.
It's a
It's going
three-way
to be
battle to the
Liverpool,
top.
City, Chelsea. Liverpool, City, Chelsea, just rotated around for the next
Mm.
5 years. That's what I thought.
Mm.
Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, they made the deal with the devil, like you said. That's
Yeah.
the problem. But
Yeah.
and speaking with someone who, well, I guess the fiery pits of damnation. The fourth spot, lava. Arsenal lose the North London derby 3-0. A pretty
Mm,
abject performance
mm.
from a lot of the players. Rob Holding with the worst 30 minutes of football I've seen in a while. Two clumsy yellow cards. Well, the second one was definitely useless. Didn't really need to do it. But yeah, just a really poor performance from Arsenal. Like props to Eddie and Ketia for finding his way into the spot, but just really had nothing to
Yeah.
show. Sorry, in the game, like when we know what Conte is about. Sit deep, counter attack, and punish you that way. you know what Son's like. Kane's been, considering the start to the season he looks like a semblance of a footballer now, which is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Heung-min
much
Son
better.
having one of the best seasons he's had at Spurs, and would be top of the scoring charts if penalties didn't count, which is something that he'd be 2 goals ahead of Salah, I believe,
Well,
if without penalties included. So goes to show how prolific he's been
mm,
in front of goals without penalties. But yeah, it was just I don't understand these top four the teams fighting for top four. It's like honestly, at this point, they don't. Neither of them deserve an opportunity to play in the champion. Give that spot away to another league because
raffle it.
raffle it away. Give it to like Czechoslovakia. And I don't know. Give it to someone that does like they'll show for it because Spurs. I don't know how they've gotten to the point that they're even in contention. But props to Conte, you have to admit, but they don't look like a Champions League team. Arsenal
No.
doesn't either. United's probably the furthest from it. West Ham, although plucky, have run out of steam. Their squad's gone
Mm,
thin. The tax of the season has come on. And they've
mm,
also had issues with injuries and talismans missing time. So if you realistically look at it, right, and I know it's harsh to say without looking at the groups or anything like that, but if any
yeah,
of these teams finish fourth, whether it be United, West Ham, Spurs, or Arsenal, I based on the strength of their group, there's no chance they're winning the group. That's one thing. I think there's 95% chance that they even win the group. But then also, I don't even see them finishing second if the group comes out that there's, a plucky side like a Benfica or an Ajax or,
mm,
someone that's well drilled, like a capable squad to do an upset. I don't see
yeah,
them even finishing second. So what's third or fourth? Either they go to the Europa League or they finish last and don't play in Europe anymore. I literally cannot see these teams making it out of the group. Yet here we are talking about them finishing the fourth. It's literally like best of the rest. It's like
yeah.
not even a European caliber team. They're just like, yep,
Well, I think it just
we
goes to show you.
mudsling our way through it.
I think it just goes to show you that this team, the team that we were just talking about, them that have been in a car crash for the last
Mm,
6 months, right,
mm,
in Chelsea, are third. Like that just shows you why fourth spot is being vied for by these two teams that probably really shouldn't have any business in the Champions League. It's
mm.
because even at third place in Chelsea, they're on fire and they're in third place, like on fire in the worst sort of sense. Like
Yeah.
literally everything's gone wrong that you can
Yeah,
expect
the gap
from
completely
ownership.
eroded.
Yeah, from ownership to player personnel to even the poor coach's love life. Like literally everything is capitulating. So like for them to still be able to hold third spot shows you how sort of, I don't want to say poor because like they're obviously still good teams in the grand scheme of the millions of teams of football worldwide. But
Mm,
in the Premier League, for what we expect from Arsenal and from Spurs, they've been dog shit like for some time, right?
mm,
For the
mm,
last couple of seasons. This season, Arsenal started to put together something sort of promising towards the first like third, 2/3 of the season, and now it's sort of collapsed a little bit. It's fallen apart. It's shown it's where the holes are in the game, and then also players that were playing well above their heads are starting to come back to reality, right? And there's no real pathway or clear pathway at least that anyone can explain as to how they're going to get better. Like it's
mm,
it's just sort of maybe they can aim for something around fourth, fifth next year if they don't get worse. But the reality is they may get a little worse, right?
mm,
You know,
mm,
unless they get a better forward up front, unless your young players like your what's his name, Gabriel at the back or Martinelli up front or whatever it is, unless they sort of jump to another level next season, they're in for some more mediocrity. That's the
mm.
reality of things.
Or at least a
So
roller coaster.
exactly. So if you take that team and throw it in the Champions League, I don't think it's gonna do too well. With
No. Even
Spurs,
yeah.
with Spurs, I really just think Conte just works some sort of magic with them. They're they're a very mediocre side. I think even their best player in Harry Kane hasn't been that great this season. I think that unless they make some really like stellar signings that
Mm,
no one really expected, there's just again with them no real way they get better in the next 6 months. So
for
again,
sure.
most likely if these teams get to the Champions League, they're going to be roughly the same sort of squads that we're seeing now,
Yeah.
and that's just not a good recipe for success, I think.
No, definitely not. I think Spurs are still a lot of signings away, and a lot of Conte getting his way with the squad. He needs the players he wants, which is who knows what they look like and what that shortlist is, which names are on that shortlist. But the likes of United are they've got Ten Hag, absolute car crash of a season. Um, at this stage they'll be playing Europa, so they're not.
Mm.
Like, who knows how they're going to work there? West Ham, although like we love a plucky underdog, their squad isn't strong enough. It isn't deep enough, and the fact that all this talk of Declan Rice going at the end of the season for a big sum, it's the talisman of the club.
Mm.
Besides, I'm drawing a blank on his name, the striker.
The one
Oh,
that they got.
yeah. The striker. He's got braids. Jamaican.
Oh, Antonio.
Antonio. Michael Antonio. Yeah, that Mikel Antonio.
Yeah.
That's it. Besides him, he's the next best. He's the talisman. He's the captain. All
Mm.
those things. And if you lose him, you lose a good soul, a good part of your soul of the team. So
Well, if they sell him, they're going to get a big sum, and they're going to have to reinvest that sum
yeah.
into some players to get into the club. There's a high, like there's going to be a chance where these players that they bring in are going to take a season or so to get up
Mm,
to speed, right?
mm,
Depending on the kind of players that
mm.
they sign.
And they
So I
have to
feel
actually
like,
sign good players too.
yeah, I feel like if they sell Declan Rice, they're in for at least a season of sort of downtrend before they start to pick up again.
Mm,
Because whoever they get is going to take some while to gel into the team and is going to make things shuffle around anyways. And they've been good because they've been consistent. They've played the same way pretty much against any opponent they face, and they've got a lot of well drilled set piece plays that they rely on to get them goals. So if you start to shuffle that squad around, it's always going to bring you lesser return, right?
mm.
It's going to take some time for it to sort of actually capitalize on the investments that they're going to make off the Declan Rice money. So,
Mhm.
anyways, let's wrap it up there. Follow us on the socials at Last Goal Wins Pod underscore on Instagram, at Last Goal Wins Podcast on Facebook, at Last Goal Wins Pod on Twitter. All glory be to Bozza. Thank you very much. Pow pow.
Wee wow, woo wow, wee wow, woo wow, wee wow, woo wow.